We're just fanatics out here waiting on Return of the Jedi. 3 years in the making. We're waiting for this.
Some people don't idolize Darth Vader like I do. See, I want him to get Luke.
I guess Darth Vader will die. I'm not sure. I hope he doesn't. I love his black.
It's almost midnight and the countdown is on here at the Esquire Theater because at 12:01 a.m. Wednesday morning, the first official showing of The Return of the Jedi rolls onto the big screen.
Everyone must have his own ticket. Please have your ticket ready.
Go in and out for immediate main floor and balcony seating. Hold your own ticket as you enter the theater, please.
In May 1983, the box office was littered with a variety of content. Currently, the reigning movie was Roy Schnieder in Blue Thunder, which came out the same day as Breathless. The week before the release of the most anticipated film of the year saw Space Hunter, Adventures in the Forbidden Zone, and Tough Enough, trying to cash in before it would be overshadowed by Return of the Jedi on May 25, 1983. It dominated the box office, breaking records that would not be matched for over 30 years. Jedi would consistently stay number one for weeks to come. Films like the fantastic Psycho 2, War Games, and one of my beloved comedies, Trading Places, including James Bond Octopussy, could not beat it out of the top spot. Only Superman 3 could beat it during the week of June 17th through the 23rd. However, following the reviews of that film, it quickly lost the following week to Star Wars, and Jedi would remain number one till the second week in July. No doubt the merchandising would keep Jedi on the minds of the public wherever they went. On May 27th, Burger King once again offered 4 collector cups. If you went to the grocery store, you could find the new Pepperidge Farm cookies with chocolate, vanilla, and peanut butter flavors. In July, if you went to your local mall, which was a huge pastime around this time, you might be lucky enough to see a Jedi Adventure Center, which was nothing more than pictures and information promoting the film. Let's not forget the arcades, where the new Atari Star Wars game was released just before the film.
Grid 5, I'm going in.
A new Death Star game for the Atari home system was made as well. Then there was all the standard products we were used to: bed sheets, curtains, lunch boxes, novels, activity books, coloring books, pop-up books, shirts, shampoos, soap bars, bowls, erasers, soundtrack, backpacks, masks, sticker albums for stickers. Let's not forget the Darth Vader speaker telephone. There was a variety of model kits as well. Topps ushered out 132 trading cards with a whopping 33 stickers, which meant if you wanted a set, you most likely had to buy a complete box to get it. If you were a real completist, though, the 33 stickers had 2 color borders each. So if you wanted to get all of them, that meant there were 66 stickers to obtain, 1 to a pack. You would be lucky to get a complete set with 3 full boxes. This card line would later be followed up by a second series of trading cards, which I actually preferred as there were less cards to get and more obscure pictures that let you explore the film, its locales, and personalities. New Ewok plushies were also made, and these plushies were actually a fight for Lucas to get made because he wanted a Star Wars plushie for his daughter, and Kenner said that the toy market had so many teddy bears it might be a risky venture. However, Lucas was adamant and Kenner caved. The plushies were not wonderful quality and were rushed. There was even a Parker Brothers Battle Over the Sarlacc board game, which was pretty awesome. Yet the real thing we kids salivated for was the new figures, and it was the biggest rollout ever, with 17 new figures along with guns, lightsabers, and a bandolier strap.
Target and other stores in the area predict the toys will rake in millions of dollars. The movie has just been out for 2 days, but the kids are already asking Mama for 2, 3, and even more characters.
Which one of the Star Wars figures is your favorite?
Darth Vader.
Why?
Because he talks and he goes...
Victor Solis, Channel 5 Action News, Dallas.
When Jedi came out, I was elated because Star Wars was my best connection to other kids, as I was awkward, timid, and shy. When the movie was new, everyone was celebrating it, and I fit in perfectly during such moments. I instinctually knew the movie was the end, and so I met it with bittersweet feelings. My family just moved into low-income apartments called Foxbourne just across the street from Southwick Mall in Toledo, Ohio. I remember going to Montgomery Ward to stare at the figures for hours. Who wanted a television when this was your view? Since we had no money to see the movie, I entered a drawing contest at my church, and one lucky winner would get to see a PG or G movie of their choice. To my surprise, I won and was taxied to see the movie at Showcase Cinemas in early July. As a child, the movie ended perfect in my eyes. Luke was my idol at these times because my youth was filled with violence due to adults around me giving into substance abuse. I would often hide in my closet, playing with my toys to avoid it. I wanted so much to be like Luke, and took the themes of Star Wars very seriously since 1977. I tried to have a serious mind that was not clouded by selfish outlooks and emotional panic. This is why it was so sad to see Luke end his story, because as a young 11-year-old, I didn't know who I would look up to in the future. For any young person or teen growing up with the films at the time, although the Ewoks were popular, many adults at the time frowned upon them as an obvious gimmick by Lucas, and it would be years before most of us young folk realized this as well. Some adults in the media were stating that Star Wars dumbed down audiences, while Siskel and Ebert defended the film.
But why do you feel they are so bad? These films try to keep stupid children forever, and that I think is wrong.
And I would say not that I'm childlike, but that he is old at heart. Yeah, I think that Mr. Simon ought to do what I did over the weekend. I went to a regular movie theater in a shopping center in Michigan City, Indiana, and I sat amid all the kids. There was one tall head and a lot of small heads.
Were they dumber than they needed to be?
No, they weren't dumber, to quote that interesting phrase. They were ecstatic. They were enjoying it, and they were rooting. They were asking each other who's who. They were getting all involved. They were rooting for the right guys and booing the bad guys. I thought it was a lot of fun. I feel badly, honestly, that this other critic, John Simon, didn't have a good time at these pictures. That's too bad for him.
When the movie starts, the incomplete Death Star casts a looming presence that must be dealt with. It's a great mood to start the film with because we all know what such a thing is capable of. The Imperial Shuttle, for some reason, is my favorite vehicle in every Star Wars film ever made. Its gracefulness and sounds just appeal to me for reasons I can't quantify. Out of all the classic films, visually, I think Jedi is the most interesting, especially in Jabba's palace because it's just a sensory overload of costumes, harkening back to the first Star Wars cantina. Another nice touch is that the Empire is depicted efficient and competent because even Vader's shuttle cannot approach without proper codes. This builds more threat and tension of the Empire, however, once Endor begins, it is quickly dismantled, which is unfortunate. I love that they show a TIE bomber Easter egg right here as the shuttle lands. Jerjerrod is no Tarkin. In fact, he is portrayed as cowardly and easily controlled by his superiors, a fact which would be concreted by a final deleted scene where he is ordered to blow up Endor with the Death Star. It's pretty obvious the Emperor didn't want a Moff who thought for himself running the second Death Star. It is really something how Jerjerrod was supposed to be a competitor of Vader for the Emperor's attention in early drafts, and now he's just a cowardly tool. For our first deleted scene, Luke would be found building his lightsaber, and I'm actually glad this was never in the film, as we didn't need to see it. Nor did we need to see Darth mentally trying to communicate with Luke. Starting off on the droids walking to the palace was a perfect transition from Darth and Jerjerrod. Now when the droids enter the palace, look closely as the door closes. You can see the original inhabitants of the fortress moving around behind the droids. These spider-like droids are called Bomar monks, who transplant their brains into droid bodies to live forever. Classic EU went into great depth about these monks, but I won't go into detail about them because we're talking about what's in the film and not EU concepts. I will say that there is so much packed into Jabba's palace, and it is a playground of depth when you dig into the character studies and politics within Jabba's fortress. If you ever decide to check out the expanded universe material pertaining to Star Wars, I highly suggest after you check out the Thrawn trilogy, check out books and material about Jabba's palace, and make sure it is Legacy EU, not the Disney stuff. There is tons of details and cool stories that really fit with the characters seen in the film, and a lot of alien performances match the EU stories. Moving on, when EV-99 calls R2 a feisty droid because he is giving attitude, it's very odd she does not put a restraining bolt on the droid. She does order 3PO to get one, though.
Guard, this protocol droid might be useful. Fit him with a restraining bolt and take him back up to His Excellency's main audience chamber.
But we never see a restraining bolt on R2. We can't argue that maybe he got one and removed it. What is also a very big convenience is that R2 somehow is set up as a bartender for Jabba's sail barge later in the film. What if R2 was assigned maintenance somewhere in the bowels of the fortress and couldn't go anywhere else? Sure is lucky R2 was assigned to the barge. We can also argue this away with our own fan head canon, but the film doesn't address these types of things, and that is when the cracks start to form in this grand plan to free Han. It requires that everything happen the way Luke desires, and it is clockwork. We will go into this more later. Now, I will be pointing out a lot of little things about this palace, and some will seem inconsequential, but I just love doing it, so let's start off with this droid here. Clearly, EV-99 has a torture fetish, as you can see dismembered R2 units and droids throughout the droid evaluation room. This droid, CZ-4, is a secretarial droid that was dismantled as punishment. However, it will be put back together and seen here after Luke kills the Rancor. Can you imagine being torn apart and repaired as punishment?
I couldn't think of a more horrible job if I wanted to. And you have to do it.
Besides Bespin and Hoth, Jabba's palace is my favorite locale in all of Star Wars. It is just eye candy of characters and costumes, and all the creatures look like they belong and fit in the universe perfectly. Some of my favorites is Amanaman, Ifant Mon, and of course Jabba. As you can guess, I like unique, non-standard designs for my aliens, although the Gamorrean guards, Bib Fortuna, Clatonians, Niktos, and Baratas are cool too.
Klaatu, Barata, that's it.
Jabba was an amazing design, and he looks fantastic. He has not dated a day, and is just a perfect design for the crime lord. Hats off to the makers of this puppet. It is amazing. At the beginning, we see Jabba smoking his hookah and spice, and the thing about Jabba is that we later see other Hutts in Lucas's Star Wars, and what most don't know is that Jabba is just a drugged-up slob, and that is why he is colored the way he is and drooling. He is really unhealthy as well, and most in the palace are just waiting or plotting to kill him so they can grab his power. What you see in the film is that Jabba has an open room with many denizens. Some of them want to kill him, and others police him like Boba Fett and the Gamorreans to keep him safe. Jabba wants all his loyalists to sleep in the same room as him, because there are so many plotting to kill him, he doesn't know who to trust. There are informants everywhere as well. So Jabba is clearly paranoid. The movie shows this, and although the movie doesn't spell it out, once you discover these basic politics, it makes complete sense why the environment is the way it is, and it really works. Now, in 1983, there was a music video for Loppy Nick for MTV. The video actually started with Yarna introducing the band and then joining in the dance. Okay, it's time we go into the special edition for Return of the Jedi, and all I have to say is no. This is embarrassing compared to what came before. It is the worst special edition adjustment to all the films. I felt this way the first time I saw it, and I feel that way today. Sorry. To be fair, I didn't mind the introduction of Rapper Tooney, or even the Rhodian, Doda Badanawido, playing his slitherhorn, and yes, I think I pronounced it right. The drummers Ak Rev and Oopus Stay were fine, I guess, and being the completest nerd that I was back in the day, I have these figures. However, the music number is awful, and the dancers are kind of silly, even though, it's true, I have those figures too. Joe Yowza is just cringy, though, and I've got that figure. God help me. I was an uncurable Star Wars collector before Disney. Thank you for breaking me of my vice, Disney. In the end, given the choice of Jedi rocks for these characters to exist, or choosing the old version, there is no debate. Give me the original, and I can leave the rest. Oola really had no way out of her miserable life. But yet again, this is a convenience, because had Oola not died, what would Jabba have done with Leia? I'm surprised he didn't torture her to death for ruining his favorite wall decoration. Then there is the reunion of Han and Leia, and even as a kid I wondered why she took her helmet off without subterfuge and then lifted Han up while leaving her disguise on the floor. Wouldn't she need the helmet to get out of here? But then if you think about the logic of the film, the goal must have been for her to unfreeze him and get captured. Nothing more. Some alien concepts never made it into the film. One was Lightman. He was a strange monster test, and originally he was supposed to walk Luke to Jabba. During tests, it was laughed at on set, so the idea was abandoned quickly. Supposedly, this was to be a lava-type alien, but it never got finished. Supposedly, Lightman was filmed, as you can see in this picture, when Luke and Han are judged by Jabba. However, he is not in the film as it stands today. Now, when Luke falls into the Rancor pit, there is a real nice nod to Empire Strikes Back. Apparently, the bounty hunter Dengar, seen in Empire, hated Han Solo so much he had to come see him, and here he is. In some of the unused footage for the Rancor pit, Luke and the Gamorrean were posed to have a showdown before the Rancor was revealed. Luke would then jump to the grating, but Jawas would hit his hands, causing him to land on the eye of the Rancor before hitting the ground. A section of the Rancor's head with an eye was built, but it did not make it into the final film. This scene was well known to kids like myself who collected the Topps First Series trading cards in 1983. During the scene where Jabba sentences the heroes to death, neither Han or Luke says anything about Leia, and this frustrated Carrie Fisher in real life. She felt her character was totally forgotten about at this point. Fisher joked about the scene later. "Don't worry about me, I'll be fine." Fisher stated that filming this very scene was the moment she realized she wanted to be a writer. On the way to the Pit of Carkoon, there was a deleted scene where C-3PO tried to translate for Ree-Yees and Yak Face. The translation didn't work well, and the two got into a fight because of it. You can see that C-3PO was knocked over. This scene never made it into the film, but was on trading cards. Now we come to yet another special edition moment, and this was when I got frustrated in the theater in 1997. A mysterious maw, which you rot in until you presumably starve to death or run out of oxygen, or an earthworm with a mouth coming out of it. Which is more ominous? I do appreciate how they tried to correct this continuity in Book of Boba Fett, but the show was so unintelligent that it didn't warm me to the retcon. Another great nod to Empire is when Bosk shows up on Jabba's sail barge. The Wookiee-hating bounty hunter can be seen to the right of Jabba as he is ready to hear pleas for mercy. It is a blink or you'll miss it moment. Now that R2 is on the deck, we have to address the plan for the last time. So according to the film, the goal is for everyone to get captured with the exception of Lando, and Leia was to free Han from his carbonite. Luke would then arrive, hoping that no one is killed or tortured to death, and his goal was to piss Jabba off enough that he would sentence them all to death at the Sarlacc, which may be a well-known activity of Jabba on the planet. But to hope that the Hutt would assign R2 to the barge and the droid is free to go wherever, and that Leia is captured and tied to Jabba, and that Han and Chewie would be Sarlacc food with Luke, rather than some other fate, stretches credulity. It means that Jabba would have to do everything Luke wanted and was completely predictable. It's a good thing Oola died when she did too. As an 11-year-old, I thought the first act was perfection, which is a testament to the beauty of these films for kids. But the more I learned about storytelling, the harder time I had with this section of the film. That's not to say I can't enjoy watching it, but I wouldn't be fair if I didn't point this stuff out. Also, some could argue that it's supposed to harken back to Flash Gordon's serials, which made less sense. However, the first two films are the standard of Star Wars, and they are very believable. Thus, Jedi falls short to said standard. Then we come to Boba Fett, which I was never a follower of. Sure, I liked him, but I wasn't gaga for him like so many fans in the past. I was frustrated in the special edition when they kept shoving him in your face constantly because it destroyed his mystique, as less is more for villains. However, the way he died was laughable, and I remember when I was young, in the theater, my 11-year-old self said out loud, "See, he isn't tougher than IG-88 or Zuckuss," and I still stand by that today, especially after the Book of Boba Fett turned the character into a poor tactician who is not only weak, but full of folly. Now, a very subtle detail in the film is when a blast hits the skiff, and Chewie is hurt by it. You can see Chewbacca rocking his leg and Han saying, "Are you okay?" During the upcoming deleted sandstorm scene, you can see Chewie's leg wrapped. As Jabba is choking for dear life, notice that no one is helping him. He was not liked by the majority of his court, and the panic on the barge was immense. I want to note that Luke is the most wanted man in the galaxy at the moment. Leia was hugely wanted as well, because they were critical leaders of the rebellion, and it was no secret to the galaxy. This is not only evident to any fans of the film, but to the many bounty hunters who work in Jabba's court. If I was on this barge, and I knew that the two big leaders of the rebellion that were wanted most by the Empire were out in the middle of a desert, it wouldn't be a stretch to imagine that the rebellion wasn't far behind them. So Jabba going out in the middle of the desert at this time with these two people was just insane. I'd be scared to death to be on that barge. With that in mind, when you see all the denizens running around in panic and no one is helping Jabba, it makes sense. It's time to cover the sandstorm scene, and it is the very first day of shooting when this deleted scene was made. The scene doesn't really show much except Han's appreciation towards Luke and that he owes him one. I like the scene, but I can see why it was removed. Later, from 2008 to 2012, figures would be made for this deleted scene, and they are pretty cool and a nice find. Another deleted scene that I'm glad is not in the film is when Darth Vader and Jar Jar are marching towards the Emperor's arrival in preparation. This serves no purpose and is just pageantry. I cannot imagine anyone else playing the Emperor, and truthfully, my favorite performance in the film after Mark Hamill is Ian as the Emperor. He is so good at the part, and I was overjoyed that he continued this role in the prequels. Another thing to note is that my favorite costume in the classic trilogy is the Emperor Royal Guard, as I had one of those costumes during the early 2000s. I love that getup, and I miss owning it very much. Now, whether you love or hate the prequel trilogy, they are so relevant to this film. Both Yoda and Ben are from an era where attachment was forbidden, and it was the very thing that created Darth Vader. Palpatine merely gave Anakin a push after the Jedi ostracized him, like they did Qui-Gon. If you don't know what I mean here, go back to my prequel coverage. The point is, they only see the possibility of Luke killing Vader, and his attachment is his weakness, which actually was in deleted dialogue that didn't make it into the film, proving the point further.
Obi-Wan would have told you long ago, had I let him. Now, a great weakness you carry. Fear for you I do.
Now, this may ruffle some fan feathers, but I always saw Yoda and Ben in the classic trilogy, even as a kid, as managers setting up a prize boxer for a fight, regardless of the means to achieve victory. Luke was a tool to them, and they never cared if he knew the truth about Vader. Yoda even states that it was unfortunate he learned the truth before he died, which is pretty callous. Just imagine if Luke didn't know Vader was his father, killed him, and then found out. Wouldn't that shatter Luke's view of the Jedi and possibly turn him after the fact due to resentment? And if not, what would that do to his outlook? Because of these obvious ramifications, it was clear that the end goal was all that mattered to Yoda and Ben, no matter what. Now, I don't see Yoda and Ben as bad guys, far from it. I'm just saying they suffer from the same methodology they used in the prequels. Luke's attachment is not a weakness. It is the salvation of the Jedi and ushers in the right era that Qui-Gon tried to begin during Episode 1, but he was rejected. This is one of the reasons the Book of Boba Fett with Luke is so offensive. Luke tries to force no attachment on Grogu when it was his attachment that saved Vader and was supposed to set things right. Luke is not of the mindset of the old vanguard. He is a new hope for the Jedi, and writers of these episodes have no understanding of what Luke is as a Jedi. Ben and Yoda simply don't understand attachment. They never had it. Luke did, and he needs it. Otherwise, he would never have gone after Han the way he did. Sadly, the Dagobah scenes show us that Ben and Yoda don't fully trust the Force like they say they do. Their minds are still a bit closed, and they lack faith in the Force like Qui-Gon preached and Luke practices. Otherwise, they would not see just one option, which is killing Vader. A nice continuity to Empire Strikes Back is two familiar droids in the Rebel briefing. When the command team enters the briefing, FX-7 can be seen on the left, while the medical droid 21B can be seen sitting behind Lando a bit later. More nice returns is Dennis Lawson as Wedge. This is his third stint as the pilot, and once again, he would survive another Death Star battle. Next to him is Nien Nunb, who is actually a B-Wing pilot. Later, we will see Nien Nunb in a different outfit, after Lando would make him the co-pilot for the Falcon. Again, I need to repeat that the costume designs in this film are my favorite of all the classic trilogy. I've already noted that the Royal Guards were my favorite costume, but Lando's general outfit was always a big deal for me, especially because I love the character so much. I thought it looked so cool. There was more deleted footage with Lando during these scenes, where Luke and Chewbacca said goodbye. What we got in the film was the best, though.
Okay.
Lando!
The Force be with you.
Good luck to you.
Thanks.
See you up there.
Right.
The Imperial Dignitaries are the last remnant of the old Senate. They are nothing more than galactic politicians trying to gain or maintain power by sucking up to Palpatine. I find it no surprise that they all look old and vain, as they are so near to the Emperor. They are interesting characters for further world building, but it would have been nice to see some of that world building in detail. Now that the Rebels have landed on Endor, it's a good spot to end our video. Next week we will finish the series, and until then, hopefully your time will pass quickly while you're waiting. If you like what you see here, click like and subscribe. Help the channel.